This topic is important, and it's controversial. Only, I guess, from one particular set of eyes. But here's the thing. Is America becoming a pagan nation? Those in the religious community, particularly in certain aspects of Christian denominations, think so. They cite the numbers since the pandemic, the shutdowns. It's becoming clear that, and this is just my take on it, the spell was broken to a large degree. Because ever since the lockdowns, and even though to a limited degree people were still allowed to go to church, because America only has one religion, right? Seems like it. Problem is, this one religion thinks that it owns the Constitution, that only its beliefs should be displayed in government buildings, opening a prayer with displays. Although the Constitution clearly says that's not the case. But yet all other beliefs, religions, and gods are shut out, which is unconstitutional. In fact, if ever this got to a court case, someone would be paying big time. And we've got to change that. And the reason why this topic is so important is that because it represents probably one of the most important changes, particularly here in America. Now, does only one religion have the market, the corner on the market, as to what morality is? Or do they have the sole proprietary right in order to say what is holiness? Are they the only ones that have a voice where public policy is concerned, in making of laws, in setting community standards? Does only one religion have that right? And is all other voices to be shut out? Now, to getting back to my point, the panic is this. It is estimated that if you look at the population of the United States, and I know this because I invented the first mobile giving system for churches. What I did. So I invented it. Didn't exist. I already was part of the team that invented the pay at the table. So I know these statistics. Now, traditionally, it was estimated that the United States population was, if you look back in the late 20th century, was comparatively 77% Christian. Or so that's what was said. Now, since the 2000s, there has been a gradual decline, but it was only within 1 or 2%. There was a brief period in the teens where there was an uptick at the very early, and then, boom, the pandemic came. Now, that came at a bad time because there was something that happened. Starting about 2010 and crescendoing into about 2013, there was a fundamental shift with many of those who identified themselves as Christian right or Christian left. Odd that you would have, but anyway. Then the lockdowns. And I contend was that because there wasn't the coven coming together, and when the spell was spoken, the benediction, the invocation, that spell was broken, and a lot of people never returned back to the church. They left. They didn't leave in thousands. It's now showing they left in millions. Now, this represents a fundamental threat to a power structure that has been so entrenched and in place illegally, I contend. United States is not a Christian nation, never has been. The truth be told, we are a pagan nation. Now, those millions that are leaving, many of them find themselves coming right here. They are spiritual by nature. We all seek that out. That's why we sought out particular religious beliefs. We were drawn that. We're spiritual beings. And we are naturally drawn to that where we came from. The spirit realm, however you want to define it. But those millions, and I read more churches declared bankruptcy last year than in any one year. Significance. Remember, religion is a fifth largest industry in the United States. Big business. So with those now leaving, there's a gap. And many are being drawn to what is now called pagan. Now, again, pagans have been disparaged ever since this religion came into the world. Yeah. But the thing about it is, this religion would not have its holidays, federal fucking holidays, right? Predicated on some sort of event. All of them pagan. All of the traditions were taken from the pagans. We've been here since the beginning. We have many different forms and many different points of view. We know what morality is. We know what morals are. We know the difference between what is right and wrong. We don't need a God specifically that demands a worship or a particular platform in order to conduct that in our lives. The vast majority of people do have empathy. There's some that don't. So in this case, and what we've seen as well, that with the dominance of only one point of view, which is so divided in itself, they don't realize that they are, in fact, pagans themselves. Hey, Robert V., good to see you. Yes, founders of our country were deists. They believed in a universal type God, deity. I don't want you to hear that shit. And so there is a coming war. I'm telling you, folks. There is this power structure that is now threatened. And they realize who that enemy is. Now, we're no enemy at all. We don't seek in that direction. We don't think like that. But it is now attacking the very foundation of which this power structure was built upon. Now, this power structure is so integrated into the system itself. And when you see the rise, particularly, I heard a statistic this morning. They say that the 20-somethings is the most depressed, alcoholic, drug-dependent generation ever. They are a generation without a rudder. They don't know where they're going. I can see that. They're confused. Yeah, I can see that as well. Because they're getting the blunt end of all this. Many of us who were involved in these thought forms and have been, I'd say, fortunate, privileged enough to live those days, because those days do represent, in some degree, wisdom. That's the one disadvantage about youth. Youth doesn't really fully grasp or understand wisdom. They're still assimilating experience. And experience leads to knowledge, and knowledge and then goes forth. So I can dig that. And if I was a 20-something, I always think of Brandon. And there's others. I think of Ryder. So many others I think Ryder's 29. They're seeing this. And so they're being hit with the blunt force of some paradigm shifts. Big time. Because when one God is threatened to be replaced by another or others, that's a shakeup. That's a fundamental change. It's much like a government, a nation. And we're a part of that. Every one of us, that if you're listening to me, you're a part of that. You are by definition and by nature pagan. I found this. Allow me to pull this up. And there I am. Hey, man. How y'all doing? So, look to me. I found this organization, and it's the Pagan Federation International. And actually, I've reached out to them. Going to get one of their folks on here because I don't think they would be afraid to come on here. I think the content of what this channel has produced is really pagan. So, embrace it. I like what they defined here as a definition of pagan, a follower of a polytheistic or pantheistic nature-worshipping religion. Definition for paganism, a polytheistic or pantheistic nature-worshipping religion. Okay. I guess we like it because, I guess it has to be a religion if it's spiritual, right? But anyway, I like what they have here. I like how they wrote this. It says paganism is the ancestral religion of the whole of humanity. This ancient religious outlook remains active throughout much of the world today, both in complex civilizations such as Japan and India, and in less complex tribal societies worldwide. It was the outlook of the European religions of classical antiquity, Persia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome, as well as their barbarian neighbors on the northern fringes. And its European form is reemerging into explicit awareness in the modern West as the articulation of urgent contemporary religious priorities. We're in a shift, folks. This thing that took place that I mentioned about, let's just say it kind of really hit a crescendo in 2012. I was a part of that. It started years before that, but it reached that point where something was going to happen. And many of us came to that realization, and I still remember the day when that inner image just collapses and it becomes shattered. Your whole freaking belief system. We've talked about this, and all of us have experienced it. You really find out what you're made of. And I'm really thankful and grateful for that experience. But anyway, you begin to realize some truths. And one of the truths is that this thing that they've tried to use against us and make it so ugly, well, you're just a damn pagan. Thank you very much. I'm going to make a t-shirt. I am a pagan. That's what I am. And I love it because within paganism, there is the freedom to grow. There's the freedom to challenge. There's the freedom to question. And more importantly, there is the freedom of finding answers. Yeah. And to call us barbarians, well, look in the mirror when you do that. It says the pagan outlook can be seen as threefold. Its adherents venerate nature and worship many deities, both goddesses and gods. That's the problem with the patriarchal belief system, the God spell. It has degenerated and denigrated the divine feminine. I remember a preacher who I could call out by name. He said in one of his sermons, he said, it's a damnation to even give acknowledgement to Mother Nature. And you get the women in that congregation, look like bobbleheads. Yeah. You fools. He's saying you're a second-class creation. Yeah. Read your Bible. I love it that, they talk about rights, right? Equal. God loves everybody. Bullshit. We found out that ain't true. Those people that they wiped out, those were the natives. American Indian can tell you something about that in their nation. What this white man religion is. That's what it is. Yeah. Now, think about it. The hatred. And that's the problem. Because if you've got fruit of a tree that bears a fruit, it's going to produce itself. And the thing about it is, we have been so deceived, so hypnotized, so under a spell, that we never realize that this fruit is rotten. It's nasty. We thought it was the golden apple. Goes on to talk about nature, the veneration. The spirit of place is recognized in pagan religion, whether as a personified natural feature, such as a mountain, lake, or spring, or as a fully articulated guardian divinity, such as, for example, Athena, the goddess of Athens. The cycle of the natural year, with the different emphasis brought by its different seasons, is seen by most pagans as a model of spiritual growth and renewal, and as a sequence marked by festivals which offer access to different divinities according to their affinity with different times of the year. Many pagans see the earth itself as sacred. In ancient Greece, the earth was always offered the first libation of wine, although she had no priesthood and no temple. I'd make a prediction here, and I'd love to go to Vegas and put the bet on this. If we were to put out of memory any of these male so-called gods, Yahweh, Jehovah, Elohim, the Father, whatever the fuck you want to add the name to it, do away with this Christ thing, do away with this Satan and Lucifer thing, throw these goddamn men out of the picture completely and replace it back with that divine feminine. Now, people say we need a balance, but first of all, we need to reestablish because we're ignorant. But I dare say that if that was interwoven and interconnected into the societal cultural beliefs, we may have had the opportunity to live in peace with one another. Because these fucking male gods, all they are is war and bad news. Look at it. I have said this before. You've got these people in power. Congress, even the fucking president, that say, yes, I'm a Christian and I believe in God. And then they lie through their teeth. They deceive, they rob, they steal, they murder, they kill. I don't know. Sounds to me like they're actually agents of Satan. Satan, I'm saying. They seem to demonstrate and emulate their very God that they worship, Satan. Now, why Baphomet isn't, well, Baphomet would probably not have them. But we should have Baphomet in every state capital. Should be in every school. Why not? The other side has done a pretty crappy job. And the thing it is, they always blame that it's, well, these are just things of Satan and what have you. Well, if that's all you got is to cast aspersions, point the finger, and not accept personal responsibility, then maybe your fucking religion isn't the right religion. And I damn sure don't want to have to deal with your crap. Why don't we start really thinking this out? Polytheism, pluralism, and diversity. The many deities of paganism are recognition of the diversity of nature. Some pagans see the goddess and gods as the community of individuals, much like the diverse human community in this world. Others, such as followers of Isis or Osiris, from ancient times onward, the Wiccan-based pagans in the modern world see all the goddesses as one great goddess, and all the gods as one great god, whose harmonious interaction in the secret of the universe. Yet others think there is a supreme divine principle that both wants and does not want to be called Zeus, or Hercules, wrote in the 5th century BC, or which the great goddess mother of all things, as Isis was to the 1st century CE novelist Apollonius, and the great goddess is to many Western pagans nowadays. I believe the goddess exists. I know she does. Yeah. Yet others, such as the Emperor Julian, the great restorer of paganism and Christianity antiquity, and many of the Hindu mystics nowadays, believe in an abstract supreme principle, the origin and source of all things. Yeah, that's what I look at it. There is something there. Now, I don't believe it's a god. Don't believe it's a goddess. I believe it's above that. But there's so little that that's taught on that. But that's who I give thanks to. Let me tell you, being thankful is, well, powerful. That's all I can say. But even these last pagans recognize that other spiritual beings, although perhaps one in essence with a greater being, are they themselves divine and are not false or partial divinities. Pagans who worship the one are described as the hedonist, believers in a supreme divine principle rather than the monotheist, believers in one true deity, besides which all other deities are false. Someone wrote me, I tell you, the class we had yesterday, got a couple of emails that, people said, all right, you've shown me, this can't be the way it is. And no matter how much the rationale is there, it can't be that way. Bingo. Right. The goddess, pagan religions all recognize the feminine face of divinity. A religion without goddesses can hardly be classified as pagan. Some pagan paths, such as the cult of Odin or Mithras, offer exclusive allegiance to one male god, but they do not deny the reality of other gods and goddesses as the monotheists do. The word cult has always meant the specialized veneration of one particular deity or pantheon, and has only recently been extended to mean the worship of a deified or semi-divine human leader. Now, that's the thing I'm seeing with so many people. when you start putting your beliefs in a human man, woman, but typically it's the male, you're always going to be let down. Always. Anyway, by contrast, non-pagan religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam often, but not always, abhor the very idea of female divinity. Why? Because their God is a homosexual, is gay. Oh boy, I got someone pissed off on that one. How dare you? And I mean, just went through it. And I said, hey, wrote back and I said, hey, the facts speak for themselves. I said, so are you telling me, I wrote back, I said, so when it said, let us create man in our image, were you saying that there was a woman there? A female? Can't find it. No. This God surrounds himself by 24 male elders. There's no representation of females, feminism in heaven. In fact, the female, the feminine, is more representative of hell than heaven. Yeah. There we go. Oh, yeah, I know. There we go. Anyway, this is other characteristics I want to just get right, because they did a good job. If you get a chance, go to the website. I'll put it in later in the description. Great. I like what they wrote. I did not know such an organization exists. I think they should be more known. It says the many divinities of pagan religion often include ancestral deities. The Anglo-Saxon royal houses of England trace their ancestry back to a god, usually wooden, and the Celtic kings of Cumbria traced their descendants from the god Baali, and the goddess Anna. Local and national heroes and heroines may be deified as well, as was Julius Caesar. And in all pagan societies, the deities of the household are venerated. These may include reverend ancestors and, for a while, the newly dead, who may not choose to leave the world of the living for good. Wow. Imagine that. That's something we ought to talk about. Elevating your recently deceased, past, family, lovers, whatever the case may be, and hold them up in a deity faction. Wow, that'd be kind of cool on the other side, I think. Anyway, they may include local spirits of place, either as personified individuals, such as the spirit of a spring, or the house's guardian toad or snake, or as group spirits, such as elves in England, and the little people in Ireland. The kobolds in Germany, the Varstrusi in Lithuania, Lars and Penates in ancient Rome, and so on. A household shrine focuses the cult of these deities, and there is usually an annual ritual to honor them. The spirit of the hearth is often venerated, sometimes with a daily offering of food and drink, sometimes with an annual ritual of extinguishing and relighting the fire. Through ancestral and domestic rituals, a spirit is continually preserved, and by the transmission of characteristics and purpose from the past, the future is assured of meaning. That's as far out. So, not all pagan religion is public religion, much is domestic. And not all pagan deities are humanoid superpersons. Many are elemental and collective. We are looking at a religion which pervades the whole of everyday life. Ain't that the truth? And so, it's the modern paganism. By the way, there is this great website right here. If you go to the Gutenberg.org website, if you're looking for a resource where you can actually get these books, you can download them, You can add them to your library. By far, I would recommend this. There are several others that I have put out before, but this is a really good one. I love the folks there with the Gutenberg project. Love the museum. In fact, that print behind me is actually from the surrealistic expedition that they had there when I saw it in September of 1999. And yeah, World Trade Centers were still up. I rented a helicopter with the good buddy of mine, and we rented this helicopter, and because we didn't want to go in the one that had 5, so but got some great pictures of when we were doing the whole circle thing around the World Trade Centers. But I digress. So definitely check this out. Now, there is one other thing that I want to point to, and I thought this one was very interesting. So this is a blog that I think was yesterday. This is the pathos.com. I just wanted to read this because I thought it was really interesting. It says something has been shifting within the energy. Most of us have been experiencing it and talking about it from different perspectives. It is being felt through all the planes in different ways because we all are connected through it. Some of us that work more deeply in the spirit realms, those of the unseen, are being bombarded with information, downloads, and messages. It feels like something has begun, and we are just on the cusp of its beginning. The one thing that seems clear, though, the spirits are rising. I contend, folks, I believe the veil is so it's just disintegrating, that I believe we're going to see actual footage of people in graveyards. I think we're going to see an event that has been recorded before of graves actually open, and not because of one particular religion that hijacked it, by the way. Spirits all around. Remember, the ethereal realm, the spirit realm, if it exists, it must have trillions of spirits there. I mean, I don't know if you can count it. We live in a world that contains much more than we can perceive. As I have mentioned before, our physical senses are limited by the capabilities of the physical body. We only see and hear a small scope of what is possible. Our soul senses, however, our psychic senses, can perceive much, much more. Those who focus on their development, who are able to shift their mind to process that information, are able to experience more of our surroundings. Make no mistake, I believe we all have the capability to do this, but it is a matter of putting in the work, isn't it true, to achieve it. Our society has conditioned us to ignore that sensory information, to believe it isn't real, but a trick of the mind. In order to truly open that door, we must first do a lot of deconstruction, and then retraining our own mind to see and process it. Ain't it the truth? You have to unlearn what you learned. As science starts to catch up to the magical knowledge, I'm seeing an interesting theory emerging from them. That which is called aliens, ghosts, and certain beings, such as cryptids, are starting to be thought of as interdimensional beings. Ones that live alongside of us, live on this plane with us, and under certain conditions, they are bleeding into or crossing into our physical plane and being seen. Sound familiar? The veil. The veil does not just separate us and our dead, but all the unseen. The veil is created through our own limitations. It is the fog of the mind and the difference of vibration between us and them. It is why some people can move beyond its limits and others struggle with it. It is why some places, the ones that resonate at a certain vibration, are more prone to sightings and others are not. The Earth itself has cycles of cold and warmth. It is thought by some that the fluctuation that temperature is also connected to the fluctuation of vibrations. From a science perspective, it makes sense. From a magical perspective, we can see it. Some of our great myths, the rise of magic and mythical creatures, could be correlated to those pockets of time where we are in the warming periods. It is possible that with the rising temperature of Earth, it is creating a thinning of the veil between us and them, not colliding together like multidimensional theory states, because they have been here with us the whole time, but a shift in our ability to perceive, see, and communicate with them. The perception, that which we call spirit, the unseen, is rising. They are bleeding into the reality we perceive. More and more people are starting to experience this in different ways, even those who do not believe. However, we see them. What we see them as will depend on how our mind reconciles the experience of them. If someone is scared of the unknown, the unseen, then they will most likely process it in their minds as something scary and harmful to them. If they are more open-minded, they will probably allow the unseen to manifest as they are. Religious contexts can also shift the perspective. Christians will probably put them into the context of demons and angels. Pagans may characterize them in terms more aligned with they, using this term in the broadest sense and incorporating many different species. Animals may see them more in the context of alignment with nature spirits. The brain will use whatever context it possesses in order to reconcile the information coming from the physical and psychic senses to give us an understandable context to the work of from the work within from. So Rocky saw last night, it was very interesting, and no doubt that he saw Dancer. I'll get into that another time, but yeah. All right, let's continue to go on. The divisions, no matter how we are perceiving all this, though, the context we are using to describe it, one thing seems very clear. The spirit are rising. The divisions between our world is fading, even if only a bit right now. It is possible as the energy grows and the vibrations shift that this is only a taste of what is to come. I contend that what's coming this weekend with these increased CMEs, it's got to affect this veil. It has to affect the other side. More people are experiencing them. They are seeing them, hearing them, feeling them in a more tangible and known way. Those who work in the realm of spirits, I think, will have an easier time with this. If you use cards, there's any of the modalities. Yeah. If you are one that likes to commune with the spirits, this could be a powerful weekend. And going forward, yeah. I think we already touch their worlds and know them more deeply. Those who do not may struggle harder and even question their sanity. After all, isn't that what our society has created? This idea that if science cannot prove it, then it isn't real. Yet even science is shifting in this. And boy, are they. Read this thing that university, the highest, institutions, this thing about spirit, soul, this thing about magic, this thing about the unseen, because that's what mathematics is primarily unseen realm. No one can see an electron. No one can see a proton. We can see a photon, though. No, only the effect, right? The spirits, the unseen, are rising. They are bleeding into the physical world we have known, and I believe this is only the beginning. If you are experiencing this, if you are feeling it, then I encourage you to see it with an open mind. Do not lock these entities into a narrow view based upon old folklore, but allow them space to show and tell you who they really are. Let them tell you their own stories. After all, our myths are very old, stemming from the last time that we all resided together. Look how much we have changed as humans, how much our world has changed. Theirs has too. Summon the spirits. To summon the spirits to us, we should start with an invitation. Make room for them. Create space for them. This means both within yourself and the physical spaces for them. I have several spaces on our property and in my home specifically for them. I even created a bridge on my property that links my physical space to another physical space for my ancestors, specifically for the unseen to cross back and forth. It's given me an idea. Now, because now I can actually do that. Now, I am not saying throw all caution to the wind here. Doubt not, they are not all what we would consider good or for our benefit. I have special guardians that control these spaces and act as gatekeepers. They have special instructions as to what is allowed to enter and what is not. I personally choose servitor spirits for that inside spaces. He said he wrote an article about how he created them. We did a whole show. We created an egregore. Anyway, and he says, I set mine, which can be found here. Ivy, the occultist, also has a good video on how she does hers, which can also be in. If you want the website again, it's pathos.com. So anyway, yeah, changing, baby. So let me get over here again. Ta-da! I love that. Well, so, isn't that interesting? And I happen to think that this is true. And again, I believe as a society begins to shift as well. I mean, we're changing the political landscape. The spiritual landscape for America is definitely changing. That which is defined as religious is not now simply referred to one particular thought or practice. The more that we begin to recognize and accept as the norm that every person has their own way of doing it. Now, I can tell you Christianity comes against this. So does Judaism and so does Islam. Where the other religions, as Buddhism, Taoist, Hindus, polytheistic. But if we could recognize that as a society and a culture, we would be richer for it. And that's where I see this revolution coming, and on so many different fronts. We have it coming, in the political arena. Again, very clearly, it's happening in the religious arena as well. I think more and more policymakers will have to begin to acquiesce to the fact that it's not just one religion that rules this country. What makes us unique, special, is the fact that we're supposed to be inclusive, diverse in our viewpoints and how we see others. But if you hold it to the constraint of merely one mind thought form, it's going to be a battle all the way. I say take the battle out of the equation. People say on the right, and by the way, conservatives don't have to be Christians. No. You can be a physical conservative and be a pagan just like me. In fact, I happen to think that there's probably a lot of us. But just saying. Of course, I'm just saying. But again, we have to begin to accept these changes. Otherwise, there is this religious war, and the particularly the dominant thought form of what religion is, in this form Christianity, is that they say, well, if you allow this, then this will bring absolute chaos. But you're saying from your pulpits and from your radio stations and what have you, that the world is already in chaos. You've had 2,000 years. Now, I may not be the sharpest tack in the box, but I'm sharp enough to get the point that, hey, you're the assholes who have been in charge, and you blame all your failures on all the rest of us because your failed ideology, theology, and philosophy is not the answer. Now, I'm not saying that we have the answer, but I'm saying this: you're going to get a much more diverse point of views, and maybe out of that, we can find a different path. That's all I'm saying. And you don't have Christians, you don't have to be afraid of pagans. You don't have to be afraid of Satanists. Satanists are your brothers. Now, the Luciferians say, I want neither the Satanist nor the Christian. Man. But that's a fact. And all us pagans are saying, hey, you have these huge holiday parties and themes and what have you. You plagiarized it from us. We should have some recognition in that. And go ahead and have your holidays and your holy holidays. That's fine. But if you're going to put us down, then don't use our shit. Give it back to us. Because we know how to party. We know how to give reverence. And we know how to communicate. Yeah. Hey, Danny, what's up? Hey, Chris, good to see you, dear. Anyway, I'm just saying for a friend. Hey, Morning Star, good to see you. It's true. And if we can get the word more and more out to others, is that there doesn't need to be this division, doesn't need to be this polarization. We're supposed to be intelligent enough to realize that things evolve. You can't stay with just one memory. You would be considered psychologically damaged, particularly if you kept that one memory that kept on doing you harm. That's crazy. And again, paganism is not saying it has the answer, but within it lies the answer. Personally, I think it's kind of far out to go into different gatherings. I may not be a part of it. May not be actually, someone said, well, do you do rituals? I do rituals and things, but I don't do rituals with other spirits. And my thing is this. I understand that there's a give and take. Pro on this. And I don't know what a spirit can actually offer me. Offer me to be rich? Well, define rich. I'm already rich. Make me wealthy. I'm already wealthy. Give me wisdom. I can read. Now, if I'm communing with the spirits, and to me, I do that all the time. But that's just me. I mean, if they're wanting me to get into as kids, making a blood brother, right? Well, that requires trust. And trust is earned. It's not given. That's the problem I had to learn in life. I used to be just an open, trusting person. Believed what that person, shake your hand, hug you, say, God bless, brother, we're in covenant together, and then stab you in the back. And then have the audacity to say, well, I have the higher road because I am God's chosen. Yeah, okay, that's cool. My point is, I just don't, how shall I say, get intimate with just any spirit. You're going to have to show yourself to me. And as I did that show, I don't know, 5 years ago, do the spirits find you trustworthy? Are you an honest enough person that a spirit would actually want to have communion with you? Can they trust you? Do you keep your word? Do you keep your vows, your oath? I mean, you got to ask those questions. They watch you all the time. And the thing about it is, they don't come in 20 I think there are familiars indeed, but I think for the vast majority, unless you're making the connection out there, I don't think they're really going to pay attention to you. And if they do happen to get in touch with you, they can ask very quickly other spirits, well, is this person trustworthy? What's the real motivation here? Are they just going to try to use me to manipulate so they can get something and just abandon? And the familiar will say, yeah, I'm going to say what it is. Well, all I can tell you is what I have noticed over their lifetime, that they have a tendency to, you figure it out. Anyway, I'll have to go back. Robert V, what's up? People in general are about them. No offense to anyone, but really take a look at everyone in yourself. We live in... Okay, I like that. Sean says, my spiritual gifts are my wealth, not material things. Bingo. Yeah. You see, I didn't say I am rich and I am wealthy. It's other people who put the perception of what that means. I'd rather be rich spiritually than physically rich in anything. I've seen money destroy people. I have seen it, and it's sad. It's like a cancer. There's a Proverbs that says a poor man has nothing to fear to be robbed. It's the rich man. Yeah. All right, everybody. So thank you. Great discussion.